You know how it is. You've got like a ton of ideas swirling around, projects you're genuinely excited about, but somehow they just stall. They
Mm,
never quite get off the ground. We've all been there, right? That feeling of being stuck in neutral when you really want to be in drive.
totally.
So today we're taking a deep dive into a fascinating source that unpacks exactly why we do this, why we procrastinate, and, crucially, gives us a roadmap to start taking action immediately.
Yeah,
By the end of our conversation, I think you're going to have a completely different understanding of what's going on and, well, what you can actually do about it.
that's right. We're looking at something everyone, struggles with at some point. And the goal here isn't to make you feel bad about putting things off.
No, definitely not.
Instead, we want to understand the underlying mechanisms at play and equip you with some very practical strategies to break those patterns. So, our mission for you today is clear: to provide you with concrete techniques you can start using, like right away, to move from procrastination to taking decisive action.
Okay, so the source we've been exploring starts with a really fundamental point.
Yeah,
To tackle procrastination effectively, you first need to understand its roots.
makes sense.
And it identifies 5 key reasons why we tend to fall into this trap. The first one that really resonated with me is the fear of failure. That little nagging thought, the source quotes in French, "Et si je n'y arrive pas?"
Ah, yeah. What if I can't do it?
Exactly. What if I can't do it? That can be so powerful that it stops us from even trying. Does that ever happen to you?
Absolutely. That fear can act like a powerful brake. I mean, if we avoid starting, we avoid the possibility of failure, right?
Right. Makes perfect sense psychologically.
But of course, as you said, we also miss out on any potential success or even just the learning experience. And this connects directly to the second point the source makes: perfectionism.
Ah, yes.
That strong desire for everything to be absolutely flawless can be so overwhelming that we never even begin.
Oh, I know that feeling all too well. I
Yeah.
can spend so much time just trying to plan everything perfectly before I start, arranging all the ducks in a row. And then the starting itself just keeps getting pushed back. It's like aiming for perfect becomes the enemy of just getting something done.
Exactly. It's a classic trap.
And then the source highlights a really simple but critical factor,
Yeah.
a lack of clarity. If you don't have a clear picture of where to even begin, it's incredibly easy to keep postponing.
Yeah.
It's like standing in front of a huge puzzle with no idea where the first piece goes.
That feeling of being overwhelmed by a task, that lack of a clear entry point, definitely acts as a significant trigger for procrastination. If that initial step doesn't feel manageable and well-defined, our brains tend to gravitate towards activities that are easier and, more straightforward.
Like checking email for the 10th time.
Exactly. And speaking of easier activities, the next reason is something we all contend with constantly: distractions. The constant buzz of notifications, the endless scroll of social media, streaming services vying for our attention. It's just a relentless pull away from what we're trying to focus on.
You're not kidding. It feels like a constant digital tug of war sometimes. And it's so tempting because it feeds right into that 5th reason the source brings up: instant gratification.
Ah, the big one.
Yeah. Why grapple with a challenging long-term project that might yield rewards way down the line when you can get a little jolt of pleasure from checking your phone right now? That immediate reward often wins out, doesn't it?
It really does. Our brains are kind of wired for that immediate payoff.
So thinking about these 5 reasons: fear of failure, perfectionism, lack of clarity, distractions, and the lure of instant gratification, do any of these sound familiar in your own experience? I know I can definitely relate to a few.
Oh, absolutely. I think most people listening would recognize at least one and probably more of those patterns in their own lives.
Yeah.
But what's really important, and what the source emphasizes next, is that procrastination isn't some fixed trait you're stuck with. Our brains have this remarkable ability to adapt.
Neuroplasticity. Yeah.
Exactly. We can, as the source suggests, kind of reprogram ourselves to take immediate action. This isn't just about sheer willpower alone. It's about using specific techniques to work with how our brains are wired, not against them.
Okay, and that's where things get really interesting, the solutions. The source provides 5 anti-procrastination techniques that sound surprisingly simple, yet potentially very effective. The first one is called the 5-second rule. Tell us more about how this works.
Right. The 5-second rule is incredibly straightforward. The moment you have an idea or identify a task you need to tackle, you simply count down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then you take physical action immediately.
Immediate.
Immediately. No hesitation, no overthinking, just move.
That sounds almost too basic, just counting backwards. So how can it actually make a difference?
Well, what's fascinating here, according to the source, is that this simple countdown actually helps to interrupt your brain's habitual patterns of hesitation.
Ah.
It briefly distracts the prefrontal cortex, which is the part of your brain that tends to generate those excuses, doubts, and justifications for delaying action. It creates this small window of opportunity where the more action-oriented parts of your brain can take over, even if just for a few seconds, allowing you to initiate movement before that inertia of inaction really sets in.
So it's like a quick mental reset button, a pattern interrupt.
Exactly. It's about short-circuiting that tendency to overanalyze and talk yourself out of starting.
Okay, I see. So it's about bypassing the thinking part almost.
Yeah, bypassing the overthinking part, really.
Got it. The second technique is the 2-minute technique. This one also sounds pretty easy to implement.
Exactly. The core principle here is simple. If a task can be completed in less than 2 minutes, you should just do it right away.
Write that in there.
Yep. Don't add it to a to-do list for later. Don't schedule time for it. Just get it done in that moment.
So things like responding to a quick email, putting away that one item that's out of place, making a very short phone call. All those little things that can easily accumulate.
Precisely. The power of this technique lies in preventing the buildup of those small, seemingly insignificant tasks that can collectively create that feeling of being overwhelmed.
Yeah, the clutter, physical or digital.
Right. Plus, completing even these tiny tasks gives you a little sense of accomplishment, a small win, which can build momentum and make it easier to tackle larger things later. It's like starting a small, positive cycle.
I like that, building momentum through quick wins. Okay, the third technique is called extreme task decomposition. That sounds a bit more involved, but the name itself suggests breaking things down.
It does, and it's based on a very effective principle. Taking those large, daunting projects and breaking them down into incredibly small, very manageable microtasks.
Microtask. Yeah.
The source gives a great example. Instead of thinking écrire un livre, which again is French for write a book,
Which feels monumental.
right, feels huge. Instead, you start with something as simple as rediger 3 phrases, meaning write 3 sentences.
Wow, okay. That really does shrink the challenge down to a much less intimidating size. So instead of facing this huge mountain to climb, you're just looking at this tiny little pebble of a task that feels much easier to pick up.
Exactly. The psychology at play here is quite clever, as the source points out. Your brain perceives such a small task as easy and non-threatening, which dramatically reduces the resistance to getting started.
Lowers the barrier to entry.
Totally. Once you've written those 3 sentences, you've initiated the process, and often you'll find that initial momentum carries you further than you initially expected. It's about making that first step so ridiculously easy that you can't help but take it.
That makes so much sense. It's all about lowering that initial activation energy required to get going.
Now, the fourth technique is time blocking. I think a lot of people are familiar with the general idea of scheduling time for work, but the source emphasizes a particular aspect of this. Yes, the key with time blocking, as the source highlights, is to not just allocate time for a task on your calendar, but to schedule specific time slots for focused work and, crucially, to actively minimize and eliminate potential interruptions during those dedicated blocks.
So really protect that time.
Absolutely. They provide a clear example. De 9h à 10h, j'écris sans toucher à mon téléphone, which translates to from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m., I write without touching my phone.
Okay, that's specific. So it's not just about saying work on project from 9 to 10. It's about creating a protected, distraction-free environment specifically for that task. Phone off, notifications silenced, maybe close unnecessary tabs.
Precisely. This intentional scheduling creates structure in your day, significantly reduces the temptation of those ever-present distractions we talked about earlier, and allows you to really concentrate and make meaningful progress during that dedicated time. It's about proactively carving out mental and physical space for focused action.
I can see how that would make a big difference. And finally, the fifth technique is the power of public commitment. This one can feel a little daunting for some people, myself included sometimes, but I can definitely see how it could be a powerful motivator.
It really taps into a fundamental social and psychological driver. The idea is to tell someone else, a friend, a colleague, a mentor, maybe even making a public announcement online if that fits what you specifically plan to do and by what deadline.
Putting it out there.
Yeah. The source gives a good example. Je publierai mon projet vendredi à 19h. Je te l'enverrai pour feedback. Which means I will publish my project Friday at 6 p.m. I will send it to you for feedback.
So it's about putting a little bit of social pressure on yourself, knowing that someone else is expecting you to follow through, that they might ask about it.
Exactly. Our brains are often wired to avoid social disapproval or, the feeling of not living up to our word in front of others. That anticipation of having to report back or the potential of losing face, as they say, can be a surprisingly strong motivator to actually take the necessary actions and meet your stated goals.
Yeah, that external accountability.
It introduces a layer of external accountability that can be very effective for many people. It raises the stakes just enough.
These all sound like really actionable and practical techniques, and the source has a really key insight after laying these out. Plus vous agissez, plus vous avez envie d'agir. The more you act, the more you want to act. That's a really encouraging thought, isn't it?
It truly is. It highlights that wonderful snowball effect of taking action, starting to move forward, even in small ways, generates further momentum and motivation, creating a positive feedback loop.
Action breeds motivation.
Pretty much. Conversely, as the source also implies, inaction unfortunately tends to breed more inaction, making it even harder to get started the longer you wait. It's like inertia builds up.
So the key is really about breaking that initial cycle of inertia, getting that snowball rolling, even if it starts tiny.
Exactly.
And on that very note, the source has a direct two-part challenge for you, our listener, right here and now. It's specifically designed to get you to take some immediate action based on what we just talked about.
Yes. The first part of the challenge is simply to identify one specific task that you have been putting off. Just one. Bring it to mind right now. What is it?
Got it. Okay.
And the second part is absolutely crucial. Apply the 5-second rule we discussed. Count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then take the very first, smallest possible step towards completing that task.
And do it right now.
Do it right now, before you stop listening to our deep dive or immediately after.
Seriously, don't just think about it.
Yeah.
Actually do it. Open that document, draft that quick email, make that one phone call you've been meaning to make. Whatever that initial tiny step is, take it now.
Yeah, take that first physical action.
Because as we've discussed, action has a powerful way of fueling more action. It might feel small, but it's a start.
And that's the whole point. You now have a set of really practical tools grounded in the insights of our source to better understand and actively overcome procrastination. These aren't just abstract theories. They are concrete techniques that you can begin to integrate into your daily routine immediately.
The core message we've taken away from this deep dive is just so clear. Don't wait for some magical surge of motivation to appear before you start something.
It rarely works that way.
Right. More often than not, motivation actually follows action. It doesn't precede it. Your future progress, your ability to transform those ideas and intentions into tangible realities, truly hinges on the choices you make and the actions you take. Well, starting today, starting now.
And that leads us to a final important question for you to consider as you go about your day. Maybe reflect on this later. Which of these techniques, the 5-second rule, the 2-minute technique, extreme task decomposition, time blocking, or the power of public commitment, are you going to actively apply first?
Yeah, which one resonates most or seems easiest to try right away?
And perhaps more importantly, how can you try to apply it consistently? Give that some thought. It could make a real difference.